Guys, welcome back to a brand new video. In this video is going to be another 2020 election prediction entirely based off of the polls. So as you can see here, these states, I believe it's 21 states and DC, do not have any polls. So that puts the Democrats at 68 electoral votes and the Republicans at 88. So now looking at the 538 national polls, we're going to go through all the states and fill in this map based off of the polls. So we'll start off with Alaska. It's going to be an easy, safe win for Donald Trump, even though some of those polls show it a bit closer. That'll be safe. We'll keep going. Arizona, this state could be really close. There is some B-rated polling, public policy polling, putting the state at almost an even tie, 1 point with Sanders, one even with Biden. So we'll still put this at a tilt margin towards Arizona. From the state of California, it's an easy, safe margin towards the Democrats. Let's go. Colorado is going to be, looks more like a likely margin here for the Democrats. I've been putting in a lean margin a lot, but the polls would show it at a likely margin with the Senate election there as well. Connecticut, obviously a safe state over here. The state of Florida. Now, this is an interesting one. We had some polls come out here from the Florida Atlantic University having Bernie ahead of Trump by 6 points, Biden ahead by 3, and even Warren ahead by 2, Buttigieg even. But we're going to do it based off of these polls. And these, in some ways, I believe would be a bit more accurate. Warren probably doing the worst, Buttigieg doing the second worst, Bernie not doing very well either, and Biden maybe squeaking out a win. I believe these would not be as accurate, and these are also B-plus polling. So because of that, I will put it at a tilt towards the Republican. Although some of these polls are a bit larger of a margin, Biden is winning in one of the polls. The state of Iowa shows Trump leading by about a lean margin. The closest is Buttigieg because it is a wider state, and he's doing well there in the Democratic primaries as well. So we'll put that at a lean margin. The state of Kentucky, obviously an easy, safe state for the president. State of Maine. No, Maine's obviously got the whole system, the electoral votes, and we haven't had many polls here in a while either. But we'll give the Maine's first district safe. We'll give Maine at large likely, and we'll give Maine second lean. How about that? I think that's pretty reasonable. State of Massachusetts, easy, safe margin for the Democrats. Another interesting thing here, Biden's doing 12 points better than Warren is, although these polls were obviously from April 7th, but this state will be safe, obviously. Anyway, we'll go back to Michigan first. This will be interesting. Michigan, now these Michigan polls from January 15th with B+, pretty good polls, pretty reliable polls in my opinion, would have Trump losing to all these candidates, the closest being Warren, but still Warren winning by 3 points, which is in the margin of error, 600 likely voters. But we could even put this state, based on the polls, at a lean margin towards the Democrats. So forget, Michigan is a blue state, and even with these states, it's all lean margins. I mean, we did have some polls come out here, but this is a Trump polling place, effectively. CD, not a very good polling place. These polls back here, back in November, would have been more accurate. But the most recent polls, January 15th, show a lean margin towards the Democrats. We'll go down here one below. We've got a pretty solid victory. We can even put this as a likely victory. I'll put it as a safe, actually. The polls are showing. What are these polls down here showing? Okay, so we've only got these polls from October. I'll put it as a likely margin, but the polls could obviously change. And this is kind of to prove a point here. The polls are not always accurate. And we're going to try and prove the election here. This is what the election would be based on the polls. See how realistic it is to what I predict, to what other people have predicted. And that's what we're currently doing right now. Going down to the state of Missouri, obviously they've done polls in these places, but these states are still going to be safe either way. States like Missouri and Kentucky and California, state of Montana. Steve Bullock was actually winning, but this was back in October, obviously. But the state is actually only going by a likely margin. Only 303 registered voters, but Montana's not a very good place. We'll put that as a likely margin towards the president. Almost did go to Barack Obama in 2008, but obviously that was a long time ago. They said in Nevada. We'll put this at a lean margin because Buttigieg and Warren are pretty close to each other, although they don't have much of a chance for the nomination. Put it at a lean margin. the state of New Hampshire. Now, this is a big swing state here. The most recent polls are A- polls from Emerson College, a pretty good polling place from November 26th, a while ago, but it's pretty good. This was a very expansive poll showing many different candidates, which would have the Democrats ahead by, we'll put it at a lean margin because Trump is winning in some of them, but many of them were by likely margins as well. But we'll put that as a lean margin for now. The state of New Mexico showing it to be a safe margin here. Sanders doing it the best. These polls, January 3rd to January 6th, Sanders up by 18, which would be a huge margin, but we'll this as a likely margin for now. That could be an outlier. State of New York, obviously, don't have any polls here amongst real candidates that are still in the race, but we'll just put it as a safe margin anyway. Looking at the current map, we already have Democrats at 223 to the Republicans 159, but then we'll have Texas and a couple other good Republican states coming in. The state of North Carolina, the polls have, we'll put this at a tilt towards Donald Trump because the polls back here by Siena College, A+ polling place. This is a good polling place. Have Donald Trump ahead in all the polls, but the most recent polls from November 14th, 10 days after these ones, with 1,500 registered voters, have Biden and Sanders being able to grasp thin leads in some of these, but we will give it as a tilt margin towards the Republican Donald Trump. The state of North Dakota, obviously, going to be a safe margin towards the Republican in any situation. State of Ohio, they have it as even, but more of them, I would say, the more reliable ones would have Trump in the lead rather than Biden, rather than the Democrats. But Biden is leading in this one, but we will still put it at a tilt margin towards Donald Trump because some of them have it even, some have it leaning Republican, some have it tilting Democrat. So we'll put it as a tilt to the Republicans. Keep going here. Pennsylvania hasn't had many polls since December 9th. These polls I'm not going to consider very accurate. They always have Trump leading by very large margins, but we have some from November 14th here that have Democrats ahead by a lot. And these are 2 months before or a month before these. So put it as a tilt margin towards the Democrats just to average it out because it seems kind of ridiculous to use those polls. It's not a very good polling place. Firehouse Strategies. South Carolina, obviously, safe state for Donald Trump. Oh, we already have that as a safe state. State of Texas. We'll put this at a likely margin, but it almost has Biden in the tilt column, but overall it's going to go as a likely margin just because 3 of them are +7 for Donald Trump. The state of Utah actually had Booker up by 12% for some reason and Sanders up by 6%, but in reality this is going to be a safe state. The polls showed for every other candidate. Keep going here. State of Virginia. Trump actually had some good polls here. The most recent polls from December 31st from Mason-Dixon had Trump ahead to every candidate except for Joe Biden. So for this situation, it would have Trump up by a lean margin, and that would be a very interesting flip against the establishment Democrats. Which would not include Biden, by the way. Washington State, obviously, safe margin. I was getting very close here, 255 to 252, but I think we'll see it's going to end up being very close. The state of West Virginia has Trump up by a safe margin, obviously. Did we forget Georgia? We must have forgotten Georgia. Oh, here we go. So Georgia has Trump up by a likely margin, some places even a safe margin, but we will put that at a likely margin. Does that get him over the top? Yes, it does. Donald Trump has reached the presidency currently with 273 electoral votes. We will go down to Wisconsin anyway. The state of Wisconsin, which overall I think averages out to a tilt Democratic victory. This is going to be a hotly contested state, and the polls here would show it would be a tilt Democratic victory. But regardless, Democrats would have 265 electoral votes to the Republicans 273 electoral votes, and this would give the Republicans the presidency, Donald Trump a second term in the presidency. And this was kind of a interesting video to make because the polls aren't always accurate. I don't think in any situation would Virginia go red at the same time where Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania are all going blue. Some other states like Montana would not be that close. States like Ohio probably wouldn't be that close. States like Iowa might not be that close either. Then some states might be closer. New Mexico might be closer. Colorado might be closer. Michigan will probably be closer. But yeah, this is just to show that polls aren't always accurate. So not all the polls you see, they're all going to be different from each other, even in the same state. So you can't always trust them. Obviously, we saw in 2016, not all of the polls were accurate. But yeah, so this video would have, based off of the polls, a Donald Trump victory for the second term, which is going to have to be something the Democrats are going to be able to overcome. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe as always. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.